Welcome to another episode of the Law Report. This episode is entitled Episode 55A. In episode 55, I dealt with the proposed amendments to the Turks and Caicos Islanders Status Ordinance. In today's episode, I'm going to deal with the proposed 2023 Turks and Caicos Islanders Status Regulations. And so I see this as a follow-up to episode 55. Before I do, my usual disclaimer: this is not legal advice, should not be construed as legal advice. For legal advice, please contact an attorney of your choice. Welcome back. Section 3 of the proposed regulation establishes a quota system. And according to this section, that quota will be 25 persons per year, excluding those granted status by marriage or dependent child of a person granted status by marriage. Section 4 sets out an evaluation criteria as required by Section 4.7i of the Ordinance and Section 4.9 of the Ordinance, which is the Turks and Caicos Island Status Ordinance. And this section deals with the requirements. For example, a person or applicant must be of good character, no criminal convictions, no communicable or mental disease, and it also sets out at section 4.9 a prescribed evaluation criteria. So the regulation as proposed informs me that we have moved to a point-based system where points would be awarded according to the categories that are set out in the proposed regulations. So it appears that there will be a total point system of 220. An applicant must be able to garner or to accumulate 145 points or 65% or higher in order to be granted Turks and Caicos Island or Turks and Caicos Islander status. And it would be the persons accumulating the highest number of points in any given year that will be granted status. Now, the proposed regulation set out 7 routes in which an applicant can apply for Turks and Caicos Islander status, and we'll go through them very briefly and quickly. 1 person must be a BOTC citizen with connections to the Turks and Caicos Islands and should meet the requirements set out in Section 4.7 of the Ordinance. A person must be a British citizen holding a permanent residence certificate and meets the requirements set out at Section 4, subsection 7 of the Ordinance. Number 3, a British citizen residing legally in the Turks and Caicos Islands for 10 years and who meets the requirements set out at Section 4.7 of the Ordinance. 4, the dependent child of a person who is accorded or awarded Turks and Caicos Island status by virtue of marriage. 5. An applicant who is born in the Turks and Caicos Islands at the time of their birth, one or more of their parents who are residing in the Turks and Caicos Islands legally has acquired BOTC by virtue of section 15 subsection 4 of the British Nationality Act of 1981, has resided in the islands for a period of 10 years, has attained the age of 18 years, and meets the requirement set out at section 4 subsection 7 of the ordinance, and section 15 subsection 4 of the British Nationality Ordinance deals with application for registration as a BOTC citizen. 6. An applicant under the age of 18 years who was endorsed on a PRC, Permanent Residence Certificate, and meets the requirements set out at section 4.7 of the ordinance. And the 7th and final route is an applicant who is the child of a person who is the spouse of an islander who has been adopted by the spouse, who is the islander, or who is not the biological child of the islander who was endorsed on that person's residence permit. Now the point system is divided into different categories. So for example, we have Crown employees, and Crown employees are further divided into 2 subcategories. You have essential and non-essential. For a person who is classified as an essential employee, if they have been employed with the government in that category, the essential category, up to 5 years, they would have accumulated a total of 5 points. If they have been employed in that category 6 to 10 years, they have accumulated 10 points. If they have been employed in that category 10 years and above, they would have accumulated a total of 15 points. If they find themselves in the non-essential category section or classification, in order for them to accumulate 5 points, you would have had to be employed for 6 to 10 years in the non-essential category. 10 years and above, they would accumulate 10 points. If they fall below 6 years, you will accumulate no points. Now, the essential categories are defined as the medical field, law enforcement, border control, force responders, teaching, educators, aviation, utilities and communication, information technology, cybersecurity, financial services, tourism and hospitality, caregivers, engineering, sanitation, public service operators, and security services. In non-essential categories, and this is a non-exhaustive list according to the proposed regulations, are administrative professionals, human resource professionals, construction and trade, retail sales, janitorial work, manual work, cashiers, food preparation, and customer service representatives. Now let us look at the selection criteria and the maximum number of points to be gained under each criteria. 1. Age. An applicant between the age of 18 to 24 would have accumulated 10 points. Between the age of 25 to 40, 20 points. Between age 41 to 55, 15 points. 56 to 70, 10 points. 71 and above, 5 points. Now, we look at education or educational qualifications. Professional qualifications or designation, 30 points. A bachelor's, a PhD, a master's, 20 points. A Turks and Caicos Islands diploma or trade qualification, 20 points. Award of qualification recognized by the assessing authority in the assessment of the skilled occupation, 15 points. Award of qualification recognized by the assessing authority in the assessment of semi-skilled or unskilled occupation, 10 points. Turks and Caicos Islander or Turks and Caicos Islands qualification, 2-year study, maybe at the Turks and Caicos Islands Community College, 5 points. If the spouse of the applicant has particular skills, then that applicant will accumulate 5 points. Then we look at years of residence in the Turks and Caicos Islands. A person who been residing in the Turks and Caicos Islands for less than 15 years, you would accumulate no points. 15 to 19 years, 15 points. 20 to 24 years, 25 points. 25 years or more, 30 points. Then we look at skill employment in and outside of the Turks and Caicos Islands. If you were involved in skilled employment in the Turks and Caicos Islands, for 3 to 5 years, 5 points. 6 to 9 years, 10 points. Less than 2 years, no points. Outside the Turks and Caicos Islands, less than 5 years, 0 points. 6 to 9 years, 5 points. 10 years and above, 10 points. Now we look at family ties in the Turks and Caicos Islands. If the applicant has a spouse, children, parents, siblings with Turks and Caicos Islander status, they would have accumulated 35 points. If they have family in the Turks and Caicos Islands, but they have no Turks and Caicos Islander status, 0 points. If the applicant invests in a business at home, 5 points. We look at income, annual income. Less than 26,000 per annum, 5 points. Between 26,000 and 50,000 per year, 10 points. Between 50,000 and 80,000, 15 points. 80,000 above, 20 points. We look at extraordinary achievements. If the person is accomplished in sciences, art, education, business, athletics, music industry, the motion picture industry, television, you have international recognition, etc., you would have accumulated 5 points. And there's also assimilation, how well you have assimilated in the Turks and Caicos Islands. That would bring you 20 points. Now, the ordinance also set out what it called deductible components. For example, conviction, or a record in accordance to section 42C and 7B3 of the Turks and Caicos Islands Ordinance, that could mean that you would be disqualified. If you're involved in organizing any subversive political activity, if you're involved in racism or illegal activities in Turks and Caicos Islands in according to section 47 of the Turks and Caicos Island Status Ordinance, that could mean that you are disqualified. Then there is what they call economic protection of persons already engaged in similar gainful occupation. And you could have a 20-point deduction. If an applicant is a business owner or some company, or the applicant is an employer, and he has a record of mistreating employees and colleagues or fellow workers, there could be a deduction of 30 points. And this will be verified through written submissions. So people first-hand knowledge could make submissions, and if they are being verified, then that applicant could have 30 points deducted. Here is where I will leave it for today, and I will see you in another episode. Thank you for watching.